Hello and welcome to ZalthoLIVE, the podcast featuring Zen Buddhist Monk Claude AnShin Thomas, who will share with you his life experiences that includes not only military combat, personal violence, and addiction, but also healing, transformation, and the ongoing joy of everyday life. Please enjoy listening.
First, I want to greet the people who are dialing in. Since the onset of COVID, we of the Zalto Foundation have been online. We offer formal periods of sitting meditation followed by recitations on Thursdays and Saturdays. Thursdays at 6 p.m. Central Time, Saturdays at 8 a.m. Central Time. But on Saturdays, we're joined usually by an international community, so people from, because the foundation has to reach out into Europe. Also on Sundays, that is today, right? Yes. On Sundays at 11, not at 10, but at 11, I've had an open session for questions and responses. I've been online. This is the first Sunday in 2+ years that I have not been online for questions and responses. However, the group who usually attends questions and responses are here with us because we've given the link and they're dialing in online. So I would like to greet all of them. Also to pay special attention to the person who has been my attendant and assistant for the last 23 years, Vipka Kenshin Anderson. She's unable to be here because she's caring for some animals that have come into the center since COVID. And so not to leave them and abandon them, because all life is sacred. So the incense offering. I put the incense upside down because I know John Daniel he's allergic to this stuff, so I didn't want to bother him, right? But really, I want to thank Daniel and the group from the Unitarian Church who trusted enough to give me access to all of you, and for John and Hannelore Daniel who invited me over the years to be a Dallas. This is not my first time here, but it's the first time in a long time. When they wrote and asked if I would come, I was excited. I know I'm a fully ordained Zen Buddhist monk, and there's this idea that Buddhist monks aren't supposed to be excited, but it's not true. Memorial Day. I've been invited as a result of Memorial Day. I have to pay attention I don't step off the edge. Memorial Day is a solemn holiday. It's to remember all those who have ever been killed in any war throughout space and time. It's really not a day for picnics and sales. We forget what Memorial Day is really about. Barbecues and all of that. It's an apolitical holiday. So whatever your political positions are, I just encourage you to please reflect and remember those who have been killed in any war throughout space and time. Not only those who have been killed in combat, but those who have died as a result of combat. So in the United States, between 17 and 22 veterans kill themselves every day. They die by suicide. They are also the real cost of war. The interesting part about that number is that the largest percentage of those who take their lives are between the ages of 50 and 70. You see, post-traumatic stress is just that. It's post-traumatic stress. And it's post-traumatic stress, not post-traumatic stress disorder. We are not disorder. The way we experience life now is an absolute direct connection with the truth of our lives in combat. Post-traumatic stress is an aspect of a larger topic, which is moral injury. Moral injury is a wounding, no different than being blown up, shot, or stabbed. And I have been all of those things. I'm a disabled combat veteran. I served in the United States Army from 65 to 68. I served in Vietnam 1966 and 67. I was a crew chief on helicopter gunships and slick ships. Sitting over here, we have a helicopter pilot who served also in Vietnam. It was interesting. I was 18 years old, and I was given command of $1 million aircraft. So when the pilot came to fly my helicopter, I also informed them, this is my helicopter, take care of it. If you don't take care of it, you won't fly my helicopter again. That's really something for an 18-year-old. You put all of that on an 18-year-old, and what is it when I come out of the war? What is it when I get out of the military? I spent the last 9 months plus in military hospital as a result of injuries. My life breaks down into the war before the war, and the war after the war. To address the issue of pain that followed the surgeries that I experienced, they used narcotics. And morphine, Percocet, Darvon, Darvocet, synthetic narcotics and narcotics. Now, when they got ready to discharge me from the military, from military hospital and from the military, they didn't detox me. So I was discharged with 2 serious dependencies. Narcotics and violence. You see, violence is also a narcotic. War is a narcotic. It's a force that gives us meaning from a certain angle of perception. If I want the world to be different, and I do, I need to give up my ideas of what that world is supposed to look like, and I need to be willing to wake up to the roots of war, violence, and suffering in me. War is a collective manifestation of individual suffering. I am the shooter. I'm not only the victim, I am the shooter. We are all the victim and shooter. If we see the shooter as the problem, we're failing to wake up to the roots of war, violence, and suffering in us. Keith is also a military veteran. I met Keith 4 years ago. I met Keith. Keith was in a boot. He crashed his bicycle, riding while intoxicated. Yeah, he wasn't driving, right? Keith was interested in continuing to engage with me and to engage with us in the Zalto Foundation. And so Keith said, so what do I have to do? I said, well, the first thing is no intoxicants. Keith said, well, I can do that. But we'll see. Then it's, we don't eat any meat, no fish, no poultry. I don't call myself a veggie, I don't call myself any of those things. Because this is not an identity for me. And people say, well, why not? I said, well, if I want the world to be different, if I want to bring an end to violence, to wake up the roots of war and violence in me, to not support institutions of killing and violence, what am I willing to do? If I pick up one drink, I'm supporting the institution that produces that stuff, and that makes me responsible for every death, every beating, every killing, every crash, everything that ever happened by someone who is under the influence of alcohol. People will say to me, oh, that's a bit much. That's a bit far. It's not far-fetched. Look at COVID. Yeah? Because of an incident in China. Look. How can we deny the interconnected reality which we live in? I mean, we can because of the power of the mind. And that's what really inspires me about Buddhist practice. It's about waking up to the power of the intellect. We call it the mind, because the world is as we imagine it to be, or as we shape it through our intellect. However, if we want to wake up to the truth of existence, we can do that if we're willing to invite more silence into our life and to be present to the conditioning that has shaped our view of the world. That conditioning is inherited through family generations and through the collective conscious of which we are part of. The institutions of education, of entertainment, of information, of politics. Peace, by the way, is not a political solution. It's not a political problem, it's not a political solution. It's not an idea either. Peace is a reality, it's an organic reality. It's something that we need to embody. And the only way we can embody it is by waking up to the roots of war, violence, and suffering in us, be willing to live differently, and then observing how peace shows itself in our lives. In front of, I would describe a little bit what meditation is. People have this idea about meditation as sort of sitting in repose, and being silent and stilling our mind, and they have all sorts of ideas about it. Meditation and daily life are not two things. It's not about hiding someplace, it's not hiding away in some quiet place. It's about inviting more silence into our life in the midst of the cacophony of experience that we have. It's like, how can I drive down I-35 in the midst of rush hour and be okay with that? Just be still. Not react to this person cutting this person off and the person behind driving up on me and pushing and blowing horn. How can I stay still in the midst of that? Meditation and daily life are not two things. One of the inspirations for me is a Chinese Zen monk whose name is Fayan Wenyi. That's Fayan, F-A-Y-A-N, Wenyi, W-E-N-Y-I. Might be J-I, I'd have to look. So Fayan lived in the 9th century. So what I have about Fayan is written down, so I don't know if it's true or not true. Whatever's written down works for me. So Fayan had a small monastery and a group of monks. And a certain group of monks would have to go out into the forest and gather up wood, because everything they cooked was by fire, they heated by fire. And yes, and Keith did wake up the bell. The monks came back. They were really excited. And Fayan said to the monks, he said, "Wow, what happened up there?" The monk said, "You wouldn't believe we met the most incredible master up in the mountains. He was just living in this little hut all by himself." And Fayan said, "Well, what made him so incredible?" He said, "Well, first off, we came upon him and we were startled. But he was so calm, he invited us. He said, come into my hut, let's have a cup of tea." So they said, we come into his house. Now remember, Buddhist practice, mind, right? All of this is mind. So they come into the house, and into the hut, and he's pouring tea, and they said, we drank the tea, and we looked up and we saw on his wall, there was a sign that said mind. Over his window, there was a sign that said mind. Over his door, there was a sign that said mind. Fayan went, that is quite good. But you know what would have been better? If over the door, he would have had a sign that said door. And over the window, he would have had a sign that said window, and on the wall, he would have had a sign that said wall. It does not matter what we think, believe, or say. It matters what we do. And if a thing is not practical, it's not spiritual. So what are you willing to do? If we want the world to be different, what are we willing to do? It doesn't matter what we think. It doesn't matter our ideas. It matters how we live in the world. Are we willing to see how we are connected, one to the next? Are we willing to see what prevents us from being connected? Yes, there are a lot of things in the world I don't agree with. The person who works on so I'm living in the panhandle of Florida. I'm living in a small community named Mary Esther. By vow, I'm a mendicant, so I'm not permitted to work, to make money gainfully. I'm not permitted to have retirement. I'm not permitted to have health insurance. I'm not permitted to have any of these things by vow. The monastery has a vehicle, and from time to time, it might need some repair. So there's a garage just not too far away. And the people who work in this garage, the radio station that they listen to, they make QAnon look like a middle-of-the-road liberals. It's really this, but you know, my relationship with them is just great. Because I look to see where am I connected to them, not where we are different. Where we're different is pretty obvious. I walk in there and they were going on a rant about these liberal, educated tree huggers. And I walked up and I put my hand on the mechanic and I said, you know, I'm a tree hugger. And you know, I have an honorary PhD in divinity. And they looked at me and said, yeah, but you're different. Where are we connected? Not where we are separate. Because if I start creating separation, right there are the roots of war, violence, and suffering. I do not have any enemies right now. 5 minutes, but now I don't have any enemies. I so want the world to be different. But yet I don't have an idea what that is. And I'm not out to forcefully impose any sort of ideas on the world, but rather be the peace that I want to see in the world. With that said, the robes that I wear are a symbol of my commitment to serve Lord Buddha. Buddha is not the person. It's not an icon that we worship. It is simply a word, an honorific, which means enlightened or awakened. All of you sitting here, every one of you are already awake. Unless you think you are. If you think you are, I'll be here for a while, you can check with me. If you are, then I will ask for your support. You got me. I really the other day gave Keith instructions on how to really help to build this thing. And now he can't help himself. But really, so my commitment to serve Lord Buddha is really a commitment to be of service to all of you. So in closing, I will say to you, if there's any way that I can be of help to you, please don't hesitate to ask. Or hesitate, ask me anyway. That's why I exist, to be of service. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode on ZalthoLIVE. If you would like additional information, please look at the show notes or visit zaltho.org. That's ZALTHO.org. Our work is made possible solely through donations, so please consider making a tax-deductible gift on our website. We wish you well and thank you.